Let's move on to the next section of this presentation, which is querying XML data using SQL XML in DB2. There are two words, not in DB2 but in XML manipulation. Or query, there are two words. One way is to query using the XQuery standard, and the other way is to query using the SQL and XML standards. In the case of DB2, we support both SQL, XML, and XQuery. In this part of the presentation, we are going to focus first on the SQL XML standards. So first of all, if I just had SQL, can I manipulate XML? Yes, I can, but I would only be able to get the entire XML document. So a very quick example here, let me connect to the MyDB database. At the same time that it's connecting, I'm going to delete all of this, which I did not execute from here but from the command window. And now let's say I'm going to do select contact from clients. If you recall, contact is a column as in the clients. Table contact is a column that contains all the XML. Here you can see, so if I execute this, let me clear the result here. What's going to happen when I select the XML column using just SQL? Well, I get all the XML, so that's good. But what happens if I just want to get not the entire XML? Let's say I only want to get the fax number. How can I do that? The SQL I could not do that just with plain SQL. For that, we need SQL with XML or XQuery, which we will cover later. SQL with XML is a bridge between the SQL and XML words, and we can embed XPath and XQuery as part of this in XML, which is a part of the new SQL 2006 standard that includes XML functions. There are different functions that we can use. XML parse, we talk about XML parse when we doing that insert XML. Serialize is the opposite of XML parse. XML validate for validation of an XML document. We will talk a little more about this at the end of this presentation. XML axis, XML query, XML table, etc. We will show some examples of this function. So let's start with the XML axis. So this functions allows me to perform a test based on the XML code, and that way I can restrict some number of rows. For example, here I say select name from clients where XML axis client address zip 95116 passing name from clients where XML axis C client address zip 95116 passing clients contact as C. I want the name from client, and then the third line that says XML axis client address zip right now means anything with a means it's a variable. Where is the variable defined? Variable is defined on the fourth line, the one that says passing clients contact as C. If you recall, let me show you again. Contact is the column that contains the XML document. So what we are doing here is we are passing clients the name of the table contact, the name of the column that contains the XML documents. We are passing that to the variable C, so that C has the XML document. And what we are doing here is client address. What is this? This is XPath, and then this is also XPath, where square brackets are used like a word clause in SQL, but the zip is 95116. Basically, the XML axis function allows me to filter some rows based on an element value, which in this case is zip. So basically, we want to, let's say we give an example, we want client address zip, and we test for 95116. So I want all the rows where in the XML document the zip element is 95116. So that's what we are doing with this example. Now this is the syntax that was required prior to DB2 9.5 with DB2 9.5. As you can see here in this example below, the syntax is a little simple because we go select name from client where XML exists, and we have contact. So this is a variable that is automatically created with the same name as the column name that contains the XML. So remember, contact is the name of the column that contains the XML document. So in DB2 9.5, we just use contact. It's a variable created with the same name as the column. So that is the first example. Note here that contact is in this uppercase, as in the previous example contact is uppercase, right? You have to be very careful when you work with SQL, XML, and XQuery because they are case sensitive. SQL is not case sensitive. So when you are working with SQL, you may be used to working with SQL, whether it's uppercase or lowercase. But now that we are going to export and XQuery, you do have to be careful about it. And if you work with SQL and you are working with SQL, SQL part can still be case sensitive, but the export and XQuery part must be case sensitive. So for example here, the select name from clients, you could have written this in any case, and then XML exists could also be in any case, but whatever is inside you have to pay attention to on this case. For example, client, if you had put the C in lowercase, then you would have probably received an incorrect result. There would not be an error because the syntax is okay, but you cannot find this path and then you will get an incorrect result. Now, why is in contact in uppercase? Like in this case, this is wrong because it is in lowercase. It should be in uppercase as shown here. Why should it be in uppercase? What happens is that DB2 tables and columns have to be put in uppercase. Why? Because when you create a table in DB2, you can issue a command DB2 create table. I'm going to show you very quickly here. You can say select contact from clients, for example, this in lowercase, and you can say create table, for example, and you can put all the columns, but these tables names and also column names are actually stored inside DB2 in uppercase. If I go to control center, I close this and I list the tables, they are all listed in uppercase. That's why they are stored. You can see from here the column names of the table uppercase. This by default. You could potentially store or create tables. You can force DB to create them in lowercase as well as the column. We don't really recommend you to do that because it will just add some more complexity to handling this table and columns. But anyway, you could do it, but we don't recommend it you do it. And again, going back to the original topic, basically by default these tables and columns will be created in uppercase. So that's why every time we invoke the name of the column or a table within the XML part or the export or XQuery part of the XQuery, it needs to be in uppercase. So that's one thing you should be careful about. And the problem is that if you don't make, that's a tricky part in XQuery and export. If you use instead, as I said before, a lowercase c instead of uppercase, you don't get an error. You get an incorrect result, and that is more dangerous. Another thing you should be careful about is the use of code. And I mentioned this because I'm using PowerPoint and MS Word, and they tend to change the codes and they start using curly codes. The one at the top is curly, the one at the bottom is straight. You should be using the straight instead of curly codes. The same thing here, curly, and then here is a straight. You should, example here where I will be getting an error because I was using a curly code here. Curly codes here, the same thing. This is the double quote, but it's also using curly. It should not be. It should be just straight quotes. That's a typical problem when you copy paste from the PowerPoint or MS Word into the command editor. For example, moving on to the next function, we have XML query, and this function allows me to perform and basically retrieve an XML element like email as a column. So I'm going to select XML query, contact client email. So here the example will be treated as a column, but actually it is an element of this XML document. And then you say from client or status gold. So in this case, I'm using relational column to filter the rows that I want, and I'm getting an element back in the previous example. Going back here in the previous example, we were sort of doing the opposite. We are using an XML zip to do the filtering of the rows, and we were getting a relational column back. By the way, I did not test this two queries. Let me just try them out right now. So the first one is here. I just put them in the notepad because it is easy to copy paste. So this is the same query that you can see actually from here. So select name from clients where etc etc, but now I'm going to execute it from the command editor. So I go to the command editor. Let me delete this, clear the result here, control V. I am connected to the MyDB database, so that's fine. I execute and get one return back, which is Ella Kimpton, and you can compare that. Again, it should have this 9511116. I have already showed you this actually because I have been showing the client's table several times, and I have showed you the Ella Kimpton value several times. But let me just quickly do it, and then you have that she is one with zip 95116. Okay, I'm going back here to the command editor again. As I said before, the syntax in version 9.5 has changed. So here I just put contact. I don't need to put all of these passing clients as C etc. This can be deleted. I can clear the result here, and you can execute this and you get the same result. So this is the simpler syntax in 9.5 where you can just use contact. The other query that I showed you was using XML query. Let me run this as well, but you can if you are following my presentation and you post and you downloaded the book and the exercises I have, that you follow the things that I am doing here, because it's always better to follow what I do. It's just better for learning purposes. Here I run this XML query to retrieve that email, and I get this result. Note that it says 3 records, but I only see one, but the first two are blank. Remember, I talked about this very briefly when I was talking about XQuery. In XQuery or XPath, we don't put null values in XML. There are no values like in relational, so that's why I press blank. You just put blank if there is no email blank. So moving on, I already talked about XML query. This is another example that you still are using the XML query function, but inside the XML query function, we are using the floor expression we are using for anytime. You see, for it is a floor expression. It does not have to be complete, but it is using for, in this case, it is for and contact line email 1 return. So you don't actually need to use floor expression. In this example, you could just return that email without the for and return but we're just putting this for illustration purposes so that you can see expression within the XML query. I want to execute that. I just to save some time. The same thing here using the XML query, and you can use the floor expression. You are getting the first email, and you are going to get a text from that, and what you are going to return in this case is, as you can see, we have PNP, that's HTML, and here is XML. We're embedding or combining XML together. So let me just show you that XML example very quickly. This one I will skip to save time. Now I'm going to choose this other one. Control C, go to the command editor, let me clear the result so it's just cleaner, and I execute, and then the result that I get is here. You see, it's HTML PNP, and here I have the email again. This is 3 records because it is the same query as before. There are blank, just blanks. Okay, moving on, we have here another function called XML table, and this one is used when you want to go from XML to relational. So for example, you have your system that works with the relational model, then your company bought a software products from another company that works in XML, and now you want the system convert the XML that comes from the other system to relational by treating it as a table. So here we are invoking the XML table function, and we are going to go all the way to the comment element, and then from there we are going to say the columns that I want to define in this table, and comment sharp defined as integer, and the path is going to be comment ID. Actually, it's going to be all of this right? Comments, comment, and then comment ID will be the last element. Then for customer ID, the same thing, integer path, and then customer ID for message, and the same thing, although it's a message, and then I give an alias which is t. So basically we're doing select etc from items and from t as well, from two tables. Now let me execute that query very quickly, control C, and then from here clear the results, copy and paste, and then execute. And as you can see, what I get seems to be a table, but actually all of this information was taken from XML documents. So all of these documents, but now it looks like it's a table. That's why you can work with these two systems. One is relational and the other one is XML. Moving on, we have the XML element function, which is similar to, or basically does the opposite of the XML table. This one goes from relational to XML. So you have all information in tables and you can convert them into XML document that you can use for XML creation. Now basically what we have here is that XML table can be used to go from XML relational, while XML element